understanding. If they
New Yorker magazine reporter Malcolm Gladwell wrote The Tipping Point, a study of how trends get started. He says that, like the flu, trends are contagious.
That all of a sudden, everyone's talking about the same movie, or all of a sudden, everyone you know is reading a book. That happens over and over again, I think, with social phenomenon.
That was Malcolm Gladwell speaking with CBS Sunday Morning about The Tipping Point way back in 2001. That book about how little things can make a big difference made a huge splash. Nearly 25 years later, Gladwell is revisiting the topic with Revenge of the Tipping Point, Overstories, Super Spreaders, and the Rise of Social Engineering. And he joins us first on CBS Mornings. Good morning. Good to see you.
Yeah.
It's horrifying to see myself.
You haven't changed.
Yeah,
you haven't changed.
Still cute.
But you have changed in the way that you think about the stories that you had in The Tipping Point, which remains one of my favorite books of yours and of all time. What made you want to revisit the stories that you shared in that book?
Well, so much has happened in the last 25 years. I mean, if you think about, I was interested in epidemics in 2001. Since then, we've actually had an epidemic that affected all of our lives. I wrote that book really before the internet. I mean, I'm different. I wrote that book in my 30s. I'm now in my 60s. I just thought it'd be interesting to go back and go over some of the same territory and see where I ended up. That's what led to the book.
Did you like your... Go ahead. But you said sometimes tipping points normally happen inadvertently, but they can also be engineered.
Yeah, that's...
And you give examples of that.
That's one of the things that drives this book, was the understanding that people are now taking the principles of epidemics and are quietly, in some cases deviously, using them to further their own ends. So I have a chapter, for example, on the opioid crisis and how Purdue Pharma used epidemic principles to start that. Or a chapter on the admission, how Harvard uses sports to manage the proportions of various groups on campus in a way that's not exactly, I think, above board and that we're all aware of.
You also highlight the language used sometimes in deflecting responsibility. I have some language from Purdue Pharma, not the language in your book, their current statement on the opioid crisis. Since you brought it up, I will read it.
Yeah.
Quote, they have the greatest sympathy, quote, and respect for those who have suffered as a result of the opioid crisis.
It's like they've washed their hands of it. It's this thing that happened over there. And actually, the book begins and ends with an account of the opioid crisis. That's really the epidemic that frames this reinterpretation of the tipping point.
But you talk about the overstory and Will and Grace. I thought that this was so interesting.
Connecting the dots.
And connecting the dots.
Yeah.
Talk about the overstory and Will and Grace and why that was relevant.
So if you talk to people who study social change, they'll tell you the way that America changed its mind about gay marriage is one of the most extraordinary and unexpected developments of the last several generations. I mean, even people, when I was doing that book, I was talking to people who were in the gay activists who were fighting for gay marriage at the, right around the turn of the century. They did not expect to win in the near term. They thought they were fighting a 30, 40-year battle. And they were losing one political battle after another. George Bush was standing up and saying this is never going to happen. And instead, what happens is the issue just kind of goes away.
Yeah.
And public changes its mind. And I make an argument that I think Will and Grace played an extraordinarily large role in that.
I'm also fascinated by the changes in you, Malcolm, because glad he's turned into that guy, married with 2 children. He said, let me show you pictures of my kids.
I was showing Gayle
It's
backstage.
totally changed your life, Malcolm.
I have turned into the person, in a million years, I never thought that. So first, Gayle comes in. I take off, Gayle, I got to show you these pictures. Yes, I've turned into that guy for minivan. I mean, I'm doing the whole
Real quick, what's the magic third? That's a Malcolm Gladwell
I love
law.
the magic
What's the
third.
magic third?
Well, I was interested, if you've got a group that's all one kind of person and you let in outsiders, how many outsiders do you have to let in before the group changes? And the answer is, when you get to about a third of outsiders, the characteristics of the group start to shift.
I love it.
I love
Malcolm
that.
Gladwell, we love you. Thank you very much.
Yes.
Revenge of the Tipping Point is on sale now.